Okay, I've got two different videos here that I've posted on SpeedGrade tutorials. One is this really extensive version right here that's almost 2 hours long, and I've got another version that's called SpeedGrade in 20 minutes or less that goes through basically all these steps, but it does it very quickly for those of you who are already somewhat proficient in editing and in speed and possibly even in SpeedGrade. Basically goes through everything I'm going through here, but a lot faster. So choose which one you want to watch, and there you go. But this one is an extensive, very in-depth version of that. Hello, everybody. This is going to be a kind of a full-on SpeedGrade tutorial. Get you up and running with SpeedGrade. I'm going to show how to get a project from Premiere or from an editing program to SpeedGrade via EDL exportation. We're not going to use the direct link to SpeedGrade from Premiere in this tutorial because although that is easier to do, it's going to disable a ton of different functions where you have full-on color control in SpeedGrade of your project. Now, to do this, you're going to have to follow some specific steps to get it ready to take SpeedGrade. This is the way almost anybody will do it if they're preparing a project to be sent to a colorist. We're going to show you that route. Which means preparing your timeline. Going to prepare your timeline is the first step. And there's some things you have to do to get a project ready to take over to SpeedGrade or any other professional coloring program for that matter. If you want full control in SpeedGrade of the coloring, access to, if you're using raw footage, access to your raw files, access to the data on the raw files, you need to do this style as opposed to going up to File and direct link to Adobe SpeedGrade. This has some limitations here, so I've got another tutorial on that if you want to follow that, but right now I am showing kind of the big professional route of doing things here. First of all, I've got a timeline here. Let's look at some of the, this was a short student film here that was shot and edited with red footage. And a couple of things in here that we got to notice is, first of all, SpeedGrade will only natively support certain codecs. This one here was an effect done. It kind of looks like the Planet of the Apes title. Yeah, I'm going to right click on this and say reveal in project. These things you have to know to be able to get to SpeedGrade here. Reveal in project. Here is that file that somebody gave me, a QuickTime file. I'm going to go under properties and I'm going to look at the codec on this thing here. This used as a compressor or the codec animation here. SpeedGrade does not support animation. It supports a few very particular professional high quality formats. It does support DSLR footage and some other native camera footage, but it does not support animation. That is a codec that was delivered to me. That's a high quality codec, but SpeedGrade does not support it. It does not show in SpeedGrade. It does support various types of ProRes. One of the formats of ProRes it supports is ProRes 444. Now you got to know that so what we're going to do is take files in our timeline and get them and prepare them for SpeedGrade. This file right here will not work. So there's two ways of doing this, and actually I'm going to kind of show the PC route. If you're going solely Mac and you're on a Mac the entire time, you can use ProRes and it works really well. ProRes 444. The way you would do that, let me show two different formats here you would be exporting to. I'm going to double click on this file, load it up into the window here, into the source. I'm going to hit Control or Apple M, depending on what platform you're on, PC or Mac. It brings up an export window. I'm not going to be exporting out audio, so I'm going to uncheck that. If you're on a Mac and you have ProRes installed with like Final Cut Pro, Final Cut Pro 7, and Final Cut Pro 10, which installs the ProRes codec, you'll be able to export to ProRes. Otherwise, you can install QuickTime on a Mac or PC, and it will just read ProRes. It won't write to ProRes. So I'm going to go to QuickTime. Under my codec settings here, I'm going to go down and choose ProRes 444. Now there's a couple of these lower formats that it does not accept. I think ProRes accepts ProRes 422 and HQ, but ProRes 444 is the native codec that it does accept. Then you will, once we've chosen ProRes 444, all these settings are matched here, the frame rate and resolution and everything. We're going to choose a location to save this. You're going to find a location. I'm going to name this likely the same name as the file that we're exporting out for, so title for murder ProRes. You can just put PR or something like that, and you're going to save and you're going to export. You just hit OK on that and it's going to export out. this is higher quality and more information than it really needs for this file that we're using, but this is the codec that SpeedGrade will read. And now, so if we're on a PC and we cannot export to ProRes, the route that I'm going to be showing today is actually going to be DPX. Because DPX works universally on Mac or PC. So, once again, we're going to open up our file here. We're going to do Command or Control M. I know this is a pain in the butt to do all this, but this is necessary for a nice professional color correction and getting it ready for color to facilitate color correction. We're going to choose DPX. We're going to do DPX just full range here. Max, you want to keep quality, especially if you're working on red or some other higher quality footage. You want to maintain that. If you're doing just DSLR footage, you might be able to get away with one of these other lower DPX files here, or another format for that matter. But we're going kind of full quality here. So we're going to go DPX. We're going to choose a location. This is not going to export audio. DPX is only video. It's actually a whole bunch. It's a sequence of still images. I'm going to go to my folder, and I'm going to find a location. I've got this under After Effects files and flattened files. And what we're going to do here is we're going to export this out. We're going to call it, I've already got an opening title here. You're going to name it. I'll call this opening title, which I've already done, and save. And what it's going to do is it's going to export a sequence of this. There are a whole bunch of still images equaling that shot. That's the problem with DPX is they are still images, but this is what they use in the industry still when they're doing high quality effects, when they're doing high quality color correction. They use DPX for the most part, unless they're a ProRes facility. So I'm going to save that. When I export, what I will get is that folder with that file, with all those DPX files installed. So I'm going to do the same thing. And actually, before I start this, one thing I would recommend is, especially if you're in Premiere, finding your edit, duplicating that timeline. So duplicate. I'm going to rename this. I'm going to delete that. That's an old one I've got there. I'm going to rename this for color. So this one I'm going to use for color because now I have access to the original sequence, which has all the original files in it, but I'm going to go to this one for color, and I'm going to start doing that, exporting files out. Once you export them out, you're going to have to replace these files. So I'm going to import my, actually let's go through the first stage here. I'm going to go through and do that to every one of these files. That's red footage, red footage, red footage, red, red, red. So this is all good. And one thing I want to point out here is there was a pickup shot in the middle of this. Okay, there's a pickup file that was from a DSLR here. We shot this on red, then they used a camera to just get a close-up, a DSLR camera to get a pickup of his eyes doing that. Now, you'll notice, since this was shot on red, one thing you're going to have to notice is this red footage is true 4K, which is not 16:9 4K. It is an aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. It's a little bit wider than 16:9. This is 16:9. Notice it's letterbox on the side because it's not quite as wide. So when you put it in this timeline, it's a smaller resolution. It had to be blown up to fit this timeline. Let me turn off the scale, and you'll see this is its actual size. And then when you scale it to frame size, it fits into the area here, but it has letterboxes on the side because it doesn't quite fit the same aspect ratio. 1.85 to 1, 1.77 to 1, or 16:9. Is that aspect ratio. We'll get into that later, but this one doesn't have to be exported because SpeedGrade will read that natively. I'm going to go down the line here and look for effect shots here. You have to look for all your effect shots, and you'll notice down here, right there, here's an After Effects composition that was installed here to get rid of a boom shadow that was in the background here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to export this out. Now, if you double click on this or grab it and drop it into your source monitor, it will load that After Effects file in here like it's a video clip. I'm going to export. You can export out of Premiere instead of out of After Effects, which is nice. So I'm going to we're going to do DPX here. All the settings here, we got to make sure that we maintain the same resolution. This is actually a little bit different aspect ratio. I can tell because this is a 16:9 4K aspect ratio here because it's wanting to letterbox it. So what I'm going to do before I export, come down here, select my timeline, look at my resolution, look at my pixel aspect ratio and frame rate, and make sure that everything matches. I'm going to do Control M. We're going to do DPX. I've got DPX. I'm going to go down here, and this is kind of weird. So right there, that's the difference. 4096 by 2160 down here. If you look down here, you'll see that on the resolution of my timeline. That's what the native clips are. And up here, I don't have the same resolution on the height, so I'm going to change that to 2160. Click away from that, and boom, it fits in there. Make sure my pixel aspect ratio is the same. Sometimes this will read at a different pixel aspect ratio, and will add letterboxes. You want to make sure that all these match, that your resolution matches, your frame rate matches, and your aspect and your pixel aspect ratio match. Those three things are majorly important right there. But we're DPX. Okay, so I'm going to hit click on the output name, final location. I've been saving everything under my flattened files here, and I think I've got this one already. Just in case, I'm going to. That's the shadow removal right there. I've already got this one exported out right there. There's my shadow removal exported, which is just basically 12 frames. I'm just gonna do it again just to kind of show what it does. I'll call it shadow removal. Effect. If you got shot numbers, if you're doing it on a feature film, you're going to have to use shot numbers as well to keep track of all this stuff. This is a short film, so this is easy to keep track of. You'll have to come up with your own organization. All right, I'm going to call this same, put it in the shadow. Let's go to the Finder and look at this. And there it is right there. Actually, I don't need that DPX XMP file in there. That's a Premiere thing. But there it is. There's that file right there. In a sequence of images. So now what I'm going to do, let's go back. We're going to do this to every single file in here. And I've already got them. And I'm going to move through. Here's a title. This is an animation title here, actually. And if you have titles that were created in Premiere, this one is a Premiere created title here. And this one is a Premiere created title. This one is as well. SpeedGrade will not read title files from Premiere, and it won't read black video either. So these things you got to know. So generated video, like black video, like titles, and then I've got animation movies and After Effects files. These have to be all converted to video files. Yes, it's a pain, but this is a professional route. So if you want to go the professional route, it's a pain. So what I'm going to do is, and actually in my timeline here, I could export right out of my timeline because this has to fade in, or I can bring the videos back in and add a fade in again to them if I wish. So SpeedGrade will understand cross dissolves though, so in the EDL format. So what you're going to do, same thing, double click. Oh, actually you're not going to double click, you're going to have to load that because that'll load a title here. You'll have to load this into your source monitor. Just grab it, drag it, Control M, same process, DPX export on each one of these titles, each one of these video generators, on the final title right here, and also this black video at the end. If you want to keep that black video, you are going to have to export it. You can grab it, drag it into the source window here, or the other way of exporting it is by doing an endpoint on your timeline. I'm arrowing up and down a line on these exact data points, endpoint, and this has to be exactly the same length as well. Go to the end and out point. And then you'll export this. You'll do Control M and export your in and out point here. And you'll have to do this for each clip that's a generated clip, or a title, or a black video, or a separate codec that it's not going to understand, or an After Effects file. And you're going to export each one of those out. I've got those all done. I've exported these out. So the process so far is prepare the timeline. On preparing the timeline, we're going to export out. Okay, so on our preparing timeline, things what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to export out clips that are generators, After Effects comps, titles, and obscure codecs to, I should add, to DPX, or if you're working on a Mac workflow, you can do ProRes if you have the right to export. If you have like Final Cut installed or the ProRes codec installed for export and import for read and write, then you can export it to either one of those codecs. Next along the line here is going to be importing those back into your project, getting this prepared. We're creating a brand new timeline with all the replaced video files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, okay, now we're going to import all these video clips in. Now, this is a little bit of a pain as well, because if you import, if you have ProRes, it's really easy. You can select all the videos, import them, and you're done. Since we're using DPX, we're going to have to select select the first DPX file, tell it Premiere it's an image sequence, and hit import. And there it is right there, and it reads it as a video clip. So then I'm going to drag my flattened files into this flattened folder here. Let's just open that up and I'll import them into this folder. There's my black video. There's my end title. Select the first one, import. And you're going to repeat this process and get all the DPX files that you've created. Okay, once those are all exported and then re-imported as video clips, as DPX or ProRes video clips, you're going to have to replace these in your new color timeline. So what I'm going to do is grab the title for murder here. I'm going to copy my, actually we can just put these on top for right now. I'm going to go title for murder, opening title right there, going to drag it, and you'll notice these are the exact same length right there, because it's the exact same clip, but this is a DPX sequence. So now I can, I'm just going to highlight it, do a Control D, and those dissolves match. So I'm going to delete that and replace it down in the timeline. Option arrow down to replace that into the timeline there. Now this one here was a little tricky. What I noticed here is as we went on the effects controls, I've removed it since, but this one had an in program stabilizer, the warp stabilizer in Premiere added to this. You got to be clear with workflow with who you're working with, that if any effects have been added in Premiere, those will not go over to SpeedGrade. So you're going to have to export the clip out with the effect on it. This one was actually done in After Effects as a stabilization to stabilize this dolly move. And I've got that right, open stabilization right there. This open stabilize, I'm going to drag that on top there. Make sure it matches. Make sure my dissolve matches here as well. Actually, that was a little bit longer, so I'm just going to copy this. You can highlight your cross dissolve and paste it up here to make sure you get the exact same length that the editor intended. So I'm going to grab this, move it down. That one's been replaced, so each one of these are going to be replaced with the exported out files. That one doesn't have to. Our After Effects has to be. So this one's going to be replaced. Our After Effects file will be replaced. Remember, if you have to reference the original, you can go back to the original. It's right there. And actually, these end titles were all exported as, instead of individual files, it was all exported as one big file, since there's not going to be any color correction since it's black and white. So I'm going to copy my cross dissolve, move this one down, add that cross dissolve back, and our last bitmap there. So. All right, that's going to be quite a process. I've replaced all the files in here with the After Effects, with any effects that have been generated in Premiere, with these DPX files that I've exported out. You can do this on Mac or PC. If you're on Mac, I'd suggest going with ProRes 444. It's going to be much easier to just import movie files and not deal with the DPX file format. And ProRes 444 works great and keeps the quality up of your red footage. Okay, so we've got our timeline prepared. So what we've done is we have exported out all the clips of video generators, After Effects, comps, titles, obscure codecs, blah, blah, blah. And now we've brought those clips back into Premiere, and we've replaced all those clips with our exported DPX or ProRes files. So next, now we go to the next process. The next step in the process is to export out an EDL file. So I'm going to go back to Premiere. Save my project. I'm going to, with my timeline selected, I'm going to go and actually make sure that all your layers are kind of collapsed into one final layer. You can do a couple layers in here if you wish to. 2 layers, I think, is what EDL supports. But if you have a whole bunch of things like this, where you have clips piled on top of clips, piled on top of clips, like that, it's going to really mess things up. So you have to consolidate and have 2 layers. If you're doing things, it gets a little bit more complex if you're doing complex layering and After Effects files and all that stuff. But this is kind of the basics here. So we're going to go to File, Export, and we're going to go to EDL. We're going to make an EDL file. Some things in EDL exportation you have to kind of watch for here. First of all, for it to find the original source file names, you'll want to make sure that this thing is checkmarked. We don't really need to include audio levels. I'm going to take that out. And actually, I'm not even going to include audio in this, and we're going to show you if you need to bring audio into SpeedGrade. That's pretty easy. We're going to show you a better way of doing this without having the complex audio levels and all those items there. You can actually import just a sound mix, which is the preferable way to go. So we're not going to include the video levels. You can if you want to, but we're not going to. Opacity, I just leave that check marked. Use source file name. Include transitions. You will want to include transitions. You don't have to include the key track or sound roll. Audio follows video. What we're going to do here is just go down and disable our audio tracks. We're going to say none on all these here, because we're going to just use and export it. We're going to import an actual audio track later on. So I'm going to hit OK. We can rename this Scene 1, Edit for Color. We'll call it Kill Project, Edit for Color. I'm going to hit OK. Bring up a little area to ask where do you want to export it. I'm just going to put it right into my Kill Project folder there and save. You can leave it this file format, which is standard, and there you go. It's exported out. Really quick. It's a really small file. And now we're going to export out our audio too, because we're going to need our audio. So I'm going to do a mix down, or if you have an audio artist, do an audio mixer doing an audio sound mixer doing your mix. He can export it. He or she can export out a mix for you. I'm just going to do export audio. We're going to do a WAV file here. Find a location for it, and I'm gonna I've got a file already exported out, but I'm going to do it anyway. Replace and export. Okay, once that is done, we're pretty much done with Premiere for right now. So I'm going to close Premiere. I've exported out an audio file. I'm going to actually add as part of, I guess we can do 3, and we'll export a mix down of audio. Okay, so one thing we've added as well is export out a mix down of audio if you need audio for the color correction, which is oftentimes helpful. Okay, let's get into SpeedGrade. So after all that process there, especially on just a short film there, we are going to now import our project, our EDL, into SpeedGrade. So we've opened up SpeedGrade here. We're going to create a new SpeedGrade project. It's going to ask where you want to save it. I'm going to save it here in my folder. I'm going to call this Kill Project Color. Already got one there. I'm going to replace it. Kill Project Color. Okay, now we are in SpeedGrade. Okay, now we're going to show you how to get your EDL into SpeedGrade, and we're going to show you how to connect the files to it and get it all ready to start color correction. So we haven't even started color correcting yet. We're just getting all the process ready to go. You got to make sure that your visuals are locked on your piece, that you've got a locked edit. So if they want changes on it after this, it's going to be a major pain in the butt. So let's start on SpeedGrade. Now that we have saved our project, I'm going to quickly kind of give you a little rundown of SpeedGrade here. What we've got up here is what's called the desktop area. With your desktop area, this is where you're going to be navigating to get files. First of all, you're going to tell it what type of files you want to view. Over here you got a little root system here showing where you're accessing your desktop, your volumes, your Macintosh hard drive. I'm going to go to my Try Again hard drive here, and I'm going to arrow this down. And actually, you can arrow down by hitting the right arrow key. Left arrow key collapses a folder. Arrows up and down selects a folder, but arrow right will arrow down a folder. Arrow left will close it for you. I'm going to go down to the Kill project here. I'm going to arrow right to open that up. Now, over here, the default selection of this arrow down tells you what you're going to be viewing out of these folders here. If it's sequences from selected folder, these are considered sequences over here, really, the type of file that you're viewing. So it's going to bring up files. They're really like QuickTime files, they're red files, they're still images, a whole bunch of different items that can be viewed by SpeedGrade. If you're looking for a bunch of different files, what you can do is you can do it by folder, by individual folder, and then tell it what type of media. This is going to be supported media supported by SpeedGrade, and there's some exceptions with that. Or just movie formats, or just DPX files, or just DPX or EDLs, or whatever you're looking for. You can narrow it down to those items within that folder. If you want to find all items within that folder and all the subsequent, all the subfolders within that folder, you're going to arrow this down and say, I want to view all the files in this folder and in these subfolders in the subtree. So that's one of the more common ones here, unless you're looking for a specific file where you know it's exactly at. You're going to tell it to view all the files in this kill project folder, including all these subfolders in here as well. And I'm going to tell it show supported media or just movie formats, and then it will just narrow it down to movie formats or QuickTime file or QuickTime files, JPEGs, a whole bunch of other different things here you can view by telling it what you want to see there. Next, we're going to show you some of the settings here. So that's a little bit of the file navigation right there. I'm going to show you some settings. We're going to click on the little wrench up here to bring up our settings. Let's quickly go through these. First of all, you're going to want to set these items here to match your frame rate, your playback frame rate. I'm working at 24 frames per second drop frame, which is 23.976. So I'm just going to type that in there. They've added a couple things here for GPU acceleration in the last couple updates here. So it's using your video card. If you have an NVIDIA supported Mercury playback video card, it's going to access that video card and really accelerate the use of SpeedGrade. Even on 4K footage, it's pretty dang quick. I'm going to skip cache right now. You can tell how much to allocate cache. I'm going to go through some of the main or some of the main settings here to get up and running. Right here, if you're using dual screen, you're going to be able to choose dual display out. You click this, it will send over to a dual monitor. I do have a secondary monitor right now, but we're not going to be seeing that on this recording. So since I'm working in a single screen workspace, I'm not going to enable that. If you do enable that and it shows over to the opposite screen, you're going to have to do some window adjustments here to get it framed properly. So once you get it over on your secondary screen, it's showing full screen on your opposite screen, you get everything configured. You can hold down your command key and scroll over that window, scroll up and down to zoom in and out of that, to zoom up to it or zoom out of it. And then you hold down your command or control key and do home. Control or command home will fit it within the screen, those shortcuts. So, but I'm going to uncheck that. A couple other things with editing here is our defaults for new timelines and clips we're going to set at the same frame rate. 23.976 is what I'm working out of. And now for our EDL that we're going to be importing, you got to tell it how to interpret that as well. Both edits and footage have the frames per second specified below cross-conform to the current base frame rate. So I'm going to do 23.976 on that as well. We're going to go to dynamic quality now. Okay, now if you want to increase the speed, if you don't have the hardware to back up the speed on these systems, you can change. If you're using with red footage especially, probably this is pretty standard for red footage, showing at 1/4 quality for playing back and paused 1/2 quality. 1/2 resolution is essentially what that does. And also, when it's playing back, you usually want to downsample the specified resolutions for playback because you're not going on a 4K monitor. I'm using 4K footage here. You can mess with when it's playing. I usually turn it at 8 bits per channel since if you're not working on a broadcast monitor and you don't have the hardware to back it up. And pause, you can go back to 16. That doesn't take too much processing speed. So it's usually when I set this up. If you're getting even slower speeds than that, you can go down a little bit. You can say 1/8 and 1/4 to pick up the speed a little bit for grading. Right now, I've got the processor speeds and the video card memory. I'm going to put this at 1/4 and 1/2. But those are the necessary preferences right there: playback, display, editing, and dynamic quality are the settings you'll most likely tweak. Okay. A couple of little features here. This is going to be your timeline here. This is where all your clips will be brought in, and this area down here are going to be settings and where you are going to be doing the actual grading here. Is where your grading tools are going to show up down here. So right now we're going to bring in, let's show you how to bring in the EDL. I'm going to navigate to our kill project folder. Going to go to, I'm going to narrow this down to just EDL conform files right there. And I've got my files in here. I've got an older export that I've done. I've got my kill project for color right there. I'm going to hit plus. This little plus key right here will add this to my timeline here. Click on that. And actually, when you bring in an EDL, it's going to want to make a new project based on the EDL settings. So I'm just going to say yes, we can save the changes to that. It's going to open it up in a new project. Now it has dropped our project here, our EDL, down in the timeline. You'll see the same edits, and you'll see something kind of weird. You'll see two different layers. It's kind of A and B rolling sort of thing going on. If we zoom up this, I'm going to hold down Option and scroll with my mouse to zoom up to the timeline, and we'll scroll through this, and you'll notice SpeedGrade does something kind of interesting here. It's taken one of my clips and separated it into two clips to do a dissolve to a solid color, and then it goes from the solid color back up to another clip. This is how it performs dissolves. And understands it dissolves. It basically fades from a solid black color to a video clip. But then you'll see these clips play out here, and you'll see all the edited clips. Right now it's not showing any visuals because it's got the edits in here based off the edit decision list. If you look at your edit decision list, I'm going to go to text edit here, open up the EDL here, and we're going to look at what an EDL is. EDL is a tiny, tiny document. If you look at the size of this document, it's incredibly small. It is basically 8 kilobytes on your hard drive, and that's it. All this is text document. This basically shows move number 1 here. It shows it's video, and it's got a time code, and it's got a duration. And it's got a name of a clip here as well from this name of the clip right there. And then number 2, and it's got time code. It's got the this is black video here, and it'll keep on going. It's got a cross dissolve. But basically, you'll see these clips. There's my red clip right there. There's the time code starting. There's the time code ending. There's the duration. And it's basically on paper how your edit is performed. So it brings it in and it interprets it and it shows it in a timeline with duration, in point, out point, and name of the clip. So this is going to reattach to our original footage here. So now we've got to do that. Okay, now they know what an EDL is and how it interprets it in here in SpeedGrade. I'm going to reconnect all the files to this. So this gets a little bit tricky. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our kill project, and we're going to tell this to show sequences from folder and subtree, and we're going to tell it to show all files here. Or actually, we can just tell it to show all supported files. Now down here in your timeline tab, under your timeline tab, it's opened this up since we've imported the EDL. You'll notice on the Reels, if you're not under Reels, if you're under Setup, View, Format, Details, go under Reels under Timeline. So Timeline tab and then under Reels. It's going to show all the clips, the names of the clips that it is accessing in this timeline here. So here are the names. Now it's going to try to match them to whatever you have viewed up in your desktop. I'm going to navigate this folder and say the files are here. I want you to find the files. Now if you're doing offline editing in Premiere and you come back in, you're going to have to make sure you select not the offline folder but the actual original file folder to reconnect it to the high quality footage. That's a whole different deal there. We didn't do offline editing, so we're fine. So I've revealed this kill project folder. Shows all the acceptable files in here, and all you should really have to do is, with your ADL open, is go down here and say load from desktop. Hit load from desktop. It'll search all the names. This you can pretty much ignore right here because we're going to export it out to its own format. You just hit escape to get out of that. We're going to export it out. We're going to tell it how to conform the frame rate. Okay, so now down here we've got a lot of files that have connected. These kind of bluish ones here, greenish, whatever that is, those are files that have connected, and these ones are here are files that haven't connected. This edit was done a little bit weird. They brought in some large red files and they didn't import the files correctly. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of finagling here if you run into these issues. Because red shoots on on an exFAT format, and if the clip reaches 4 gigabytes, it adds another clip, and the software will usually try to read those clips as one clip. But sometimes it doesn't happen if it's not imported into Premiere or your editing software properly. So what I'm going to do here is tell it to show all on my timeline, my whole timeline. And you'll notice the ones that it did not connect. If these were ProRes files, it would have connected a lot easier with the name. But the naming system with DPX is a little weird. Once that's all done there, I've got my whole timeline cleaned up. I'm going to start attaching these files that it did not recognize. And the DPX it doesn't recognize because the naming system's a little different on the DPX. So what I've got to do is go to my opening title. I need to find that. I'm going to go to my After Effects files, where I have that folder and my flattened folder. So I'm going to just narrow it down to the folder where I can actually see them. I'm going to make these icons larger. And look at these icons right here. So, okay, first of all, I've got my opening title right there. Here's my opening title right here. I'm going to grab this and just drag it, hold it over this clip, and let go. And tell it, that's how you reconnect it to that file right there if they don't show up. Stabilize, here's my opening, stabilize, drag it, drop it right there. This one here, for some reason, it was one of those two-piece red clips here. So this one I'm going to actually have to find here. I'm going to go to my kill project, video, going to narrow it down to my red footage here. There's my red footage, and I'm going to find clip 12. C012 is my clip number. I'm going to find that and attach it. And see, this shows up as 1, this shows up as 2. That's actually the same clip. This is clip 12, but it's 2 separated files, and for some reason Premiere read the clip 2 file, and SpeedGrade is reading this properly as if it's just one file. So I'm going to grab that, drag it, drop it, and there it is. Reconnected. So let's go through and find all these files. Okay, and I'm going to reconnect all these files here, and then when I'm done, I will come back and we'll continue from there. Okay, here's the last one, our black video, and now if we look at our entire timeline, everything is this color, everything is reconnected, and now we are ready for coloring here. So quite a process to get it from Premiere into SpeedGrade, but now that everything is in here, I can save this. And notice as I brought in EDL, it made a new project, so I'm just going to save this over my original project file. Right there, Kill Project for Color, saved. Now my project is saved. I'm all connected, ready to go for coloring. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, so that last process right there was importing our EDL into SpeedGrade and reconnecting all the video files. So next, import audio. We're going to import audio. What we're going to do here is we're going to go to our Kill Project, and we're going to find our audio file. I'm going to put this in list mode here instead of icon mode. You got list mode and icon mode. I'm going to put it in list mode, and I'm going to find my WAV file. So I'm going to go to our Kill Project. I know the sound file is right here in the folder, so I'm going to narrow this down. You have to kind of trick it a little bit because it doesn't show up as a supported format, so because it's not one that can be color graded necessarily. But I'm going to tell it just to show files in just this folder right here, and it's still not showing up here. So I'm going to go over here and tell it to show all files in this folder, not in the subfolders, just in that folder. And now we should be able to find it here. I'm going to show list format. I know it's called Kill Project Sound Mix. There it is right there. So I'm going to grab that wave. I'm just going to drag it down here until it does this little blue line right below there and drop it in. So it usually doesn't bring it in at the beginning of the timeline. I'm not sure why. This is probably a bug. So all you have to do really is grab your audio file and just drag it over. Grab that and just drag it over until it lines up with the beginning there. And there we go. And you can zoom way up just to make sure it's on the exact frame. Oh, there's a little solid extra color right there. Just grab that, drag that back to there. There we go. And these match up perfectly there. So the audio should match up with this now and will play back. And actually on these files over here, I'm going to turn off audio on these video tracks. There's audio that accompanies with video files naturally, as with most movie files. I just turn those off and leave the audio on so it doesn't slow things down. I'm going to click all right here so it shows my entire timeline. By the way, if you want to scroll up onto your timeline, once again, you just hold down Option or Alt and scroll up and down to zoom in and out, and then you just click that all button right there and it goes back to the entire timeline. Okay, so let's get into the color grading now. So the next step is grade your project. So import audio. This is all the setup right here. Now we're actually getting into the grading. The last part of this is actually just going to be exporting your movie. So we're going to concentrate on this right now. Now this is going to be quite a process here, but then we're going to get to exporting your movie, which is not as difficult as a process. Okay, so let's bring up our, let's get rid of our desktop. We don't need that anymore right now. And the way you get rid of that is hitting D for desktop. You hit D, it toggles between your visuals that you're grading down here. As we move through the timeline, you'll see it update and show our edit down here. And you hit D again, it goes back to your folder system. So get used to that shortcut. D, 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 D. D, 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 D. There we go. Okay, so we've got a visual right here of our movie. And I told you that when you go full screen on another screen, if you hold down Command and scroll in and out, or Control on a PC, this will zoom in and out of an image here. I'm holding down Command on the Mac or Control on a PC and scrolling. And if you zoom up too far and you say, I want to fit it back into the window, Control or Command Home, your home key, will fit it in your window. Same as on your full screen device as well. We'll do the same thing. Now, another thing I want to do here is I want to bring up some scopes, because you're going to be color grading with scopes. You need scopes, especially if you don't have a calibrated monitor, broadcast monitor. You'll always use scopes to do your grading. And the way you bring up scopes is you can actually hit this thing over here and just pull them over like that, or you can hit the shortcut A. A is an apple. Hit that, it brings up your scopes. Right now, you will probably see something like this if you haven't used SpeedGrade before, where it brings up four scopes, 4 different types of scopes. The ones that I'm going to be showing you how to use is going to be your RGB waveform, your Luma waveform, and your vector scope, and a couple different types of vector scopes that they've added to SpeedGrade that I really like what they've added here. I usually do a 2-scope layout. It depends on what I'm doing. But oftentimes either a 2-scope layout or a single scope layout. If I do 2, you can right click on one of these here and you can tell it, we can right click on whatever scope you want and say, I don't want this scope, I want another scope here, I want a waveform here. And then you can tell it to switch to Luma if you don't want the RGB all blended together. Switch to Luma. So I've got a Luma waveform there. There we go. There's our Luma waveform, and here is our RGB, our red color channel, green channel, and blue channel. Video signals have RGB color channels. It's a red, green, and blue mixed together, combined to create one color sequence here. And our Luma is going to be for correcting levels. That's how you change your scopes over here. If I do a vector scope, I'm going to go to a vector scope YUV, which is a pretty standard vector scope here. Or you can use SpeedGrade special hue, luminance, and saturation vector scope, which is some people like. I kind of don't like it. I'm used to the old-fashioned vector scope YUV here that shows your red, green, blue, and your magenta, yellows, and cyans. So it's got a so we got a couple different choices there. So those are your scopes right there. That's how you bring up different scopes. A to hide, A to bring them back up. Right now I'm just going to go single scope, and we're going to do an RGB scope here, RGB waveform. Let's quickly talk about these different scopes and what they do, the ones that you're going to be using. This is a waveform. Let's talk about a regular waveform before we get into the for RGB waveform. This here is a standard waveform monitor. What you have is on a scale of what they called IREs. A lot of people call these percentages. They're not percentages. This is an arbitrary scale going from 0 to 100, which carry certain meanings. This is a depiction of your image from left to right. As we move to different images, you'll see this thing change, and you'll see levels, different levels of gray, black, and whites in your image from left to right. What the 0 represents is black. What the 100 represents on IREs is white. And this is where details disappear in the black, and 100 is where your details disappear in the whites. And in between are the grays, from black going up all the way to white. It's like a grayscale going from black all the way to white up here, from left to right. Like right here, we've got kind of a white hit on his shirt. This was shot on a red camera, so it's got a lot of detail still preserved in those whites, even though it might not look like it. And you'll look up here and notice those whites on his shirt going left to right, right about there, to about 3/4 of the way over. You've got whites hitting right there. And those are at 90%, but they're not losing detail. If this was losing detail, let's bring up the whites here. We're going to get into color grading here. Then they would be clipping at 100%. If you clamp the signal there, and this clamp signal will just show when you're hitting whites at 100 IRE here, which is by default. I kind of like it turned off, so I can see what's going above there, going above 100 on the IRE scale. But we're going to reset that. So that is basically how you read a waveform monitor. Let's switch to our vector scope. We're going to go to vector scope and kind of show you how to read a vector scope here. What we've got is the middle point right here. This represents this little tiny dot where these crosshairs come together and meet right in the middle. If it's a little teeny dot there, this represents 0 saturation, no color right here. As things become more saturated, they're going to grow outwards here. It's a concentration of pixels growing out toward these regions, toward R, G, B, magenta, all these regions here, is going to show your saturation point. If you have something that's too saturated, this is going to be kind of what actually used to be considered as a standard definition region right here. This is where you start getting into the oversaturation point, and these points out here are high definition recommended points for too much saturation, for what would be considered what they used to call legal saturation limits. If we go to one of our colors here, we're going to show you how to use these in a little bit, and we gain our colors over into a region right there. That's starting. You can see some clipping in the red. This is oversaturation right here. It's showing too much saturation, and now it's showing virtually no colors beyond the reds. Over in the red area right here, you're really seeing no reds over in the area. And this vector scope is actually kind of a duplicate version of this wheel down here. You have your reds, blues, and greens. And look up here, red, blues, and greens. Yellows, magenta, all the other stuff there. So click our little reset here. We're going to get into these later. But just showing you how these scopes work here. From the middle point here, if you desaturate something just completely, watch what happens to that scope as I pull it toward the middle. It's sucking it all toward a little teeny dot in the center. That's completely desaturated, no color. As you go more on the saturation, it's showing more and more saturation. It'll grow out. So you have a certain hue of color within the shot. You have a lot of reds and yellows and a little bit of blue here. You see some right there. And as we oversaturate it, you're going to see these going out to the saturation limit points. And this is just a way of reading what colors exist in your shot. That's what a vector scope is. Waveform is really for your darks, your mids, and your lights without color. And this represents colors right here. If we go to waveform and tell it to show a parade or RGB, this is going to actually RGB shows them combined, all three combined in one waveform. But the RGB parade here, the parade will show an individual red channel, green channel, and blue channel. I'm going to reset this here. And this thing this is going to help with balancing shots. When some shot seems too cool or too warm, you'll be able to tell by this. Watch this, I'm going to make this a little too warm here. You'll be able to tell because there'll be an offset in the balance here. You'll see higher reds than greens and blues. And if you're trying to get a shot balanced or where it looks normal, quote unquote, then you're going to mess with your colors until you get these channels to match up. Then you will have a balanced shot, what's considered a balanced shot. And we're going to show you some ways to do that, and there we go. And that looks fairly normal right there. I'm going to reset this filter completely. But those are what your scopes do. Your RGB shows your darks, mids, and whites in your red channel, and individually in your green channel and your blue channel. And then the waveform monitor just shows your light levels, and then your vector scope shows your colors, what sort of hue you have, and how saturated they are. So that's an overview of your scopes. Next, let's show how to start grading here. We're going to go down to our actual look tab right here. If you're on the timeline tab, we're going to go to look tab, and we're going to start editing here. And if you play these things here, you'll notice the audio plays with it. You'll hear the audio track playing with the video here. Let's go down, and one thing that they've added recently with the updates is this master clip editing. If you edit one clip, you got to be aware if you're either on master clip or if you're on regular clip. The default is going to be regular clip. If you're on master clip, if you edit this, if this shot shows up again later on, it won't because this is an effect file here. But if you edit one clip and it shows up again later on, which will demonstrate, it will affect both clips. If you grade it and the other clip looks exactly the same, that's very convenient to be able to edit the master clip if it shows up several times. I find that's better if you're working like in a music video setting where it keeps cutting to the same shot over and over and over again. In an instance where you're doing like a narrative film, that's not the case as much. So I usually keep this on clip pretty much the whole time. Okay, so let's start grading. What clip you're going to be grading is whatever clip is selected here with your playhead. You'll notice it's selected with this highlight right there. If you click around to here, that clip is selected, and as you play through it, it'll migrate from one clip to the next. It'll usually stay on one timeline here, on either your A roll or your B roll here, as it's cutting back and forth. It uses these two layers here to be able to do dissolves from one clip to the next like that. Because these are accessing individual clips, so it's got to be able to dissolve between those clips. Down here in the, you've got all your grading tools right here. One thing that they've added here, by the way, is the curves over here. You can add curves over here as well, which is a nice little addition. But these are going to be your primary grading tools right here. This is very powerful. It's basically a 12-step grading tool here. You've got overall, which grades. Now let me show you what these things are here. You've got on your overall, you've got offset, gamma, and your gain. So you've got these three tabs right here, offset, gamma, and gain. These can essentially be looked at as a little bit different, but you can kind of look at this as your dark levels, your mid regions, and your highlights. Now the reason why SpeedGrade is so powerful is because you've also got these same tools. Whatever one of these you click on, these tools just became the darker regions, the mid regions, and the highlight regions of your shadows. and now these are all to your midtones, and now these are all to your highlights. So you can control colors in shadows, you can control them in your midtones, you can control them in your highlights very, very specifically. So you got a lot of power here. Or you can just do kind of global and affect all of them at once. A couple other things you've got here is this is going to be your tonality slider, or your basically your anything but color. This is your brightness level slider over here. And then these are the hue and balance wheels over here. These are going to be additive and subtractive colors to these specific regions, to your darker areas, to your mids, and to your highlights. And these can be operated on a virtual wheel with a mouse, by the way. If you go over this one, this is something that's kind of changed. This used to be over the wheel up here, but they've kind of changed this over to the side, so it's separately, which is kind of nice, because now if you're trying to grade just one or the other and you're using your virtual mouse, it doesn't accidentally affect one or the other when you're not trying to get there. So let's do this. You can either grab this and you can drag it up or down, and watch what happens as we do that. You'll notice it is making the dark regions darker or lighter. Now, if you want to control this with your virtual mouse, you're going to so now if we right click on this, your mouse will be a virtual tool here. You just push your mouse up and it turns it up. You pull your mouse down and it goes down. If you hold down shift, it'll do it faster. Anytime you hold down shift, it'll do it super fast. It'll be way more sensitive. If you let go, now you can just barely push your mouse up, push it down, and it grades there, the darks. And this just became a reset tool. The tool on the left here will be for resetting this right here. And if you change these ones here, you'll notice the square comes up here on the right. Just click on that and it resets your colors in that area. So I'm going to grab this and watch what happens. As we move this to one region, it's going to start affecting the darks first of all, but it's affecting the colors mainly in the dark areas, and then it'll start crushing the other regions as well. But you can also grab them and drag them with your mouse, or you can simply right click and your mouse just became a virtual color grading tool. Wherever you move your mouse to, it will grade based on those colors there. And you right click again to get out of that. I'm going to reset that. So any of these wheels do that. You right click on it, or you just grab it and move it, or you simply just right click and your mouse becomes a virtual grading tool. Right click again to get out, and that's done. So that's basically what these wheels do. And then you have some other little tools down here to control saturation, pivot point, contrast, temperature, magenta. The ones that you'll probably be using more in here is input saturation, final saturation, and when you're trying to balance, you're probably going to be using temperature and magenta sliders here to get your shots to be balanced. But these are going to be your primary tools for grading right here. Enough with the tools. Let's get grading on these shots here. First of all, I'm going to, probably the most common way of grading is to go by your levels first, or your tonality, or what's considered your darks, your mids, and your lights without color, and getting a good brightness region. There's really kind of three major purposes of grading here. One is for color. First of all, you're going to be trying to correct colors that were misshot, and correct levels. If something was overexposed or underexposed, you're going to be correcting those things. Sometimes color, you're not going to be correcting it so much. So I call this really color grading instead of color correction. And actually, if you look at the full process of color grading of a colorist's job, it is actually finishing as well. It's just not grading, it's also finishing, because you're going to be matching aspect ratios and formatting and moving, and you're going to be doing some other things with finishing the shots as well, besides just grading. It's an overall finisher as well. But we're going to be doing color and levels correction. We're going to be matching shots as another main purpose, and then adding looks as well. We're going to kind of go through this process. The first step of grading usually is correcting the levels or the tonality of the shot. All right, so this is kind of looking a little bit underexposed to me. So this is the process you usually start with. You usually adjust your dark regions, then you'll adjust your whites, then you will adjust your gamma or your middle section here, and which is also be looked at as exposure, your general exposure of the shot. So overall here, I'm going to look over at my waveform monitor here, and I notice that my dark levels are down kind of close to 0, but not quite losing detail. Just to restore a little bit of that detail, I usually like it between 10 or right around 5, just for general purposes, generally speaking. So I'm going to grab my pedestal here. I'm going to right click and start moving up the offset, which is also known as pedestal, which is also known as the darks, a whole bunch of different names for it. I'm going to raise it up just so it gets right about around 5. Just bring a little bit of detail back to the darks. This is going to initially make it look flat, but we're going to fix some of that. We're going to make it look not so flat. Now, if your whites are over 100, if it looks like this, and your whites are over 100, then you will come over to your highlights, right-click on it, and start moving your mouse down until you get your highlights. So you define your whites at white, not blown out. And I usually bring them down between 90 and 100 to just make sure they're not peaking and like blowing out. So I've corrected the darks, the lights, and now we're going to go to our mids and see if this needs to go a little brighter or a little darker and see what looks good. And usually a lot of the mids I like between, if just kind of a general exposed shot, I'll look at them between like 40 and 60 for a lot of the mid regions and faces and general exposure there. So, and these shots are going to be kind of looking flat, but right now what we're doing is we're going for matching. We are fixing our colors, we're fixing our levels. First of all, I'm going to fix the levels. Now I'm going to go under our vector scope and look at the colors. And we're going to look at this shot and see. I'm going to go full screen on this shot here and kind of look. Got a little bit of kind of orangish skin tone here. So actually I'm going to give that a little bit more exposure there. So now I'm going to look at these, save my project there. I'm going to go full screen and look at this image here. And the skin tones on this guy is a little bit kind of on the warm side. So what I'm going to do is kind of cool that shot off just a teeny bit. Actually, I'm going to look at my vector scope, and you'll be able to tell by your vector scope here where your colors are at. And if we look at this closely here, we got a lot kind of going off towards the reds and yellows and a little bit toward the blue. And we could cool this off just a teeny bit. I'm going to right click on this and kind of go toward the blue region. And look what happens to our vector scope as we go off. There, so add more blues until you get it about where you want to and cool it off just a teeny bit. And actually what I'm seeing here is not in the general shot as much as in the skin tone is looking a little too orange. We're going to get into secondary color correction and show how to fix some of that as well in the skin tones. But you're going to continue doing this, getting each shot. Now as you cut from one shot to the next here, as we play from one shot to the next, you'll notice his skin tone looks a little off. So we're going to be working on matching these shots. Good tool for matching is this little 2-up tool right here. We're going to click on that, and what it will do is it will create 2 playheads. I'm going to option scroll here and zoom up on this, and you will see 2 different playheads here. I'm going to move this just a little bit back there so it's a little away from this playhead. But it's going to show our 2 head right there, our 2 playhead right there, and this playhead right here. We'll show what these shots look like side by side. I'm going to move this over, get a little bit more room, and you can see the skin tone there compared to here doesn't quite match, and actually the levels, the video levels, don't match either. So I'm going to look at my waveform, and I'm going to adjust my darks. My darks are already right about the same region as the previous clip. The highlights are about the same. It just needs to be exposed just a little bit more. So I'm going to just brighten that up a little bit so it matches. And I'm going to cool this shot off a little bit, try to get the skin tone to match from shot to shot. And there we go. These shots look pretty similar. Right now they're not looking very pretty, these shots aren't, but we're going to do that in the look stage and in the contrast stage here. Okay, actually let's get into that a little bit right now. Let's get into these 3 tabs right here and talk about contrast and adding a little bit more cinematic look to this shot here. So what we're going to do is, because this is very flat, this shot is very flat, and especially this one here, we can see that this is a very flat shot. Flat meaning, and by definition of flat, if you look at our waveform here, that just means that all your darks, mids, and lights are kind of all squished together into one region here. They're kind of pulled down and pulled up where there's not much stretch between them. If you stretch those and stretch out the distance between the darks and the highlights, that is called contrast. And you can do that by, let's go into shadows here, and we're going to create what's actually called an S-curve on a luma curve. Actually, let's show the luma curve first and then show you how to do that manually and have more control over it. I'm going to go down here. These are your grading layers. I'm going to add a special filter here. I'm going to add a curve, and we're going to add hue saturation curve. An RGB curve is what we're going to add. Now these lines here, for those of you that have worked with curves, this represents dark point down here and your light point up here, and this is the dark as everything can get, and this is light as everything can get up here. If you grab your darks and drag them up, they're going to become very light. If you grab your lights and drag them down, they're going to become very dark, or they'll go hotter as you bring them over here. So this is kind of the light region, that's the dark region. This is your black control, this is your white control, and in between are the grays. So what we're going to do here is if we grab the bottom toward the darks and grab them toward the darker region, you'll notice everything just moved down on the dark region here, except for everything at the very, very bottom. If I grab this and drag it up like that, look how it stretches now. It's keeping these darks here and these lights there. So look at the before and after. If you hold down 0 on your numpad, you'll see before, let go, after. Look at this region as I do before and after. That's flat. That's got contrast. It's a little too much contrast, but look at the different looks that you get. Flat, contrast. That's what happens when you stretch these regions. I like the Luma curves, but it's kind of an easy fix sometimes. If you want to have more control over that, I'm actually going to delete my Luma curves here. I'm going to hit the trash can on that Luma curves. I'm going to show you how to do a manual Luma curve here. So that same way that you got the curve there, to get the curve inside of in your regular controllers here. Okay, here's the idea, is you don't want to bring down the darks so low that they crush at 0. You want a little details left in the darks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring down the shadows, but we won't bring down the very bottom part of the shadows. We'll bring down just the gamma portions of the shadows here. And notice as we do this, we bring that down, it's going to start lowering this region down around here without bringing down, or let's go to the higher regions of the gamma scale here, and we'll start bringing down the higher parts of the shadows without bringing down the lower parts and crushing the detail. So the darks are getting further away from the midtones. Now we can go to the kind of the gamma portion of the midtones and start dragging those up, and what we're going to create is a stretch between, let's go up here, there we go. On the gain we're really seeing that instead of on the gamma. We're bringing up a stretch of the midtones. Let's go back to shadows and kind of bring those down a little bit. And we're creating that stretch, the same stretch that we're creating with the curves, but we have a little bit more control over it. Same as the highlights, we can probably bring up the highlights maybe a teeny bit. And we're creating a contrast. As a result, we're creating a stretch by bringing down the, so basically what I did was brought down the higher parts of the highlights, but kept the lower parts of the highlights up. Brought down the lower parts of the shadows without bringing down the very bottom of the shadows, and stretch the mid region here. So if we hold down our 0 and show before, there it all kind of squeezes together. All these areas kind of squeeze together in the middle, and you let go and look at them stretch there. And that stretch gives us this contrasty look. That's what contrast is basically that stretch between, contrast is the difference between the darker areas and the lighter areas. And if you get that stretch, you get this instead of that. So, and you get more of a cinematic look. So there's our stretch right there, and we're getting that more of a contrasty look. So now we need to match that over here as well, because we changed it on this clip. And you're going to go from clip to clip and kind of get that same, and manipulate the image till you get kind of that same look. So here I'm going to bring down my shadows without crushing the shadows. I'm going to bring them down a little bit here, then go to the midtones, and we're going to start lifting the midtones little by little. Gamma region a little bit higher there, and let's see what we've got. There's before, there's after. See the difference in that contrast there? And you see that stretch move. So let's do a 2 up here and compare those 2 shots. Move these over. I'm going to grab my 2 here. I'm going to grab it by this arrow right here and move it to an image so I can see right there. So now we're looking at these, and those are looking pretty close. The skin's looking a little still too warm on that, but we'll fix that with a secondary layer. So that's basically what we're doing here, is we're fixing our dark levels, our light levels, the midtones, and then we're adding a little bit of contrast to it to give that cinematic look, and then we're going to start adjusting colors. So let me get rid of my number 2 here. Actually, you can just hit the 2 up and it's gone. There we go. And we can go back, and the colors look okay on this. It looks kind of a nice little kind of medium tone. And the way you can see that by colors is going to, let's first of all go to our parade. And we're going to look at these, and we can see that the blues are kind of dipped down a little bit more than the reds. Now look at the reds, kind of some of these items hitting around 50, and they're a little bit lower on the blues. So this is almost balanced, this shot. We're going to go to overall. Actually, sometimes you can get these to match just by adjusting your magenta and your temperature sliders here, and you can can sometimes achieve a little shot. Now look at this. See, as it's too blue, now you can see that the blue is dominating over the red and the green. And if we slide back the opposite direction, then you can see now the red's dominating over the blue, and you can see that in the shot. It's warmer instead of cooler, and you can see here on your graph. A balanced shot is going to have all three of these channels in about the same area, about in the same regions. So let's undo that, undo again. And so this shot is fairly balanced. These shots are pretty darn close as far as the red, green, and blue channels. Here, kind of look at it, it's about the same. You're seeing the blues kind of hitting around 30 there, and they're all hitting around 90. So this is a fairly balanced shot. Maybe a little bit more blue in here than we might want. So I'm going to scale that back a little bit by changing the temperature here. And I'm doing this in the highlights, by the way, so I'm going to undo that, go to overall, and I'm going to change our temperature here and pull down the blues a teeny bit, thus adding reds, and just a little bit of adjustment there. So there we go, and we've got these fairly balanced. When you get these three channels looking fairly similar on similar levels, you will have what's called a balanced shot, or something that looks like a properly white balanced shot. And this is going to be the process. You do your darks, your lights, your mids, and then adjust colors till you get everything looking where you want it and getting everything matched. So that's going to be what we call primary color correction. I didn't announce that at the beginning, but let's go back. This is going to be the process. These are the three purposes. Let's go through kind of a chart here explaining the process that we're going to go through. So first of all, we're doing what's called primary color correction. Primary color correction is exactly what we just showed, where you're correcting your levels and you're adjusting your colors and doing basically these two right here, getting your shots to match and getting your color and level correction in what are called legal limits, where the black's not clipping, the white's not clipping, and you're not oversaturated. And that is going to be primary color correction. Next, we're going to go through various types of secondary color correction. Secondary color correction can be one of many things. First of all, it can be finding a very specific color and either suppressing that or bringing it out. And for the instance of like maybe a sky, like you're trying to bring some of the blue back to a sky, you're trying to bring the red out of the lips. And in this instance, we're going to try to tone down the skin tone in this guy's face right here. Kind of a little too warm looking, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go down into our grading layers. You can add several layers on SpeedGrade, but we're going to add on that same clip here that's selected, we're going to add a secondary layer. Now if we want this separate, and we might want to do that, what you can actually do, and if you're familiar with adjustment layers in Premiere, you can almost add what's called an adjustment layer here. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a grade up here. And grab a single grade right here and drag it and put it on top of this clip here. Now this is not going to have the filter added to this clip. It's going to have a filter added to a separate layer above it. And that way, if we want to copy and paste filters from this to another clip, we can, and it won't paste the secondary color correction because that's going to be unique to this layer, which is affecting the clip below. So this is kind of a cool little tool you got here, is to add layers if you want to, or you can just add it natively to the clip. You've got the choice, just depends on your organization. I'm going to select the top clip there. We're going to add a secondary to the top. It natively has a primary which has not been affected. I'm not going to use that on this second layer up here, so I'm going to just delete my primary, and we're going to concentrate on secondary color correction here. Okay, so to achieve a secondary color correction here, what we're going to do is we're going to select a specific color, and it's going to be kind of the skin tone of this guy's face here, and we're going to kill kind of the saturation on it and bring it down so it doesn't look so kind of glowing there. So here we go. What we're going to do here to select a secondary region, we have a color picker down here. This is to choose a specific color vector here. We hit the plus button right there. We can come up to the face here, and you got a crosshair. I'm going to click and drag across a region of this face, and you'll see, if you look down at that area down there, where the color picker was, you'll see it increasing in areas as I drag it across more of the facial region there. I'm going to undo that because I just want to get a little bit of that skin tone there. So I'm going to go get my eyedropper there. Okay, let's grab the eyedropper, And I'm going to click right in some of the skin tone here and just drag it a little ways, just so it kind of gets a range in that, kind of a color range in that area there. Now to see what you've selected, what sort of colors you've selected, you can go to this gray out menu here. You click down and you tell it to show, I like the white-black matte that it shows here. And what it does is now it shows all the area that it is selected. You'll notice the areas that are selected is mainly skin tone right there. If there's other regions that share skin tone, it's going to do the exact, it will select those regions as well. So right now we're kind of lucky because it's just getting the facial area. Now you can see some dots in here. So it's kind of an uneven mask there. We wanted to get like mainly his whole face there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down and start messing with these. These colors down here are based on the colors that I've selected up here, on hue, lightness, and saturation. So you can start messing with these regions, increasing the hue, the saturation, the lightness, and then what these areas are here. If you look at this closely, this is the region of color that is selected based on lightness. There's a region of color based on saturation, a region based on hue. What you can do, and this is the fall off. This is kind of the softening off of those areas right there, so it doesn't just drop straight off, and it will cause less jaggy information. So what we're going to do here is grab this bottom one here, and we're going to increase the hue. Actually, that's the fall off of the hue. This here, up here, is the range of hue, and we're going to see if we're getting more image. And we're starting to get into the wall there, so I don't want to mess with hue too much. I'm going to try. I did undo a couple times. I'm going to try lightness and see what it does. And now you notice lightness. That's grabbing a whole lot of that skin tone there. Let's try saturation as well and see what saturation gives us. Grab the saturation, and that's starting to grab a little bit more of the skin as well. I'm going to make a little bit longer fall off of the hue here. Gradual fall off. Okay, and actually that's getting most of the skin tone right there. So now what I can do to perfect this mask, because you'll notice it's got, so this is the region that it's going to correct, is the area in the face right there. The white. The white is what's going to correct. The black area is what's not going to correct. So to kind of get this mask finalized here, I'm going to make a little bit more room here. I'm going to move over to my blur and denoise, because there's a little bit of noise in the face right here. So I'm going to grab the denoise. I'm going to drag it up a little bit. If you hold shift, it'll go faster, and it'll soften off kind of some of that noise in that area. What you're really going to notice here is the blur, though. As you grab the blur and drag over, what it's going to do is it's going to soften the mask in that region there. Look at that, it's starting to soften off the mask there. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit better key there. I'm going to increase my hue, grab more regions of the face, soften that off. We're going to grab the lightness, increase the lightness so it grabs more of the face. Grab more of the saturation as well. The saturation's not going to work as much as the brightness. Get about as much of that face as we can. If you get other reasons here, you can actually end up masking those off, but we're not going to get into that right now. But I'm going to blur that even a little bit more and kind of soften those pixels in the area that it's selecting so it's not so noisy. Okay, there's a good area of the region that is going to be changing now. So I'm going to turn my mask back to none. And now what it's going to end up correcting is that area that's in white. So now if I want to back off the saturation on the skin, watch what happens as I grab saturation and turn it down. I turn this all the way down, and now his face is basically in black and white there. This is very similar to what they do in movies like Sin City, and where they bring out certain colors and then desaturate everything else. But what I can do here is I can either change the skin tone. I can either change the skin tone color by grabbing the gamma here and dragging it into a certain region. That's way too warm, but I'm just showing you what this does here. You can change the color of his face, basically. So there's an Oompa Loompa. So let's do this. I'm going to grab it and just drag it just ever so slightly to cool it off. First of all, just a teeny bit. Let's grab a vector scope here. And this is going to show us kind of where the colors lie right here. If we do a color in black, it'll show us the colors in the face there. And we can kind of see what colors are existing in that face. I'm going to go to vector scope. Show the vector scope is going over into the red. What's left here by showing the color in black is mainly the colors in the red. So we can kind of back off that color by going in the opposite direction just a teeny bit. There we go. And then maybe pulling down the saturation just a little bit. Oops, that's magenta there. I'm going to pull down the saturation just a little bit. And back up the skin tone a teeny bit so it's not so warm, so red. And I'm going to say none there. And now you can look at the before and after. There's before, kind of reddish skin tones, and after, graded out a little bit. We can restore a little bit of color if we want to, but I'm kind of liking the look at this, kind of a unique little look to this shot here. But that is a secondary color correction. Now I'm going to show one more type of secondary color correction, and it's actually selecting a geographic region within the area to correct, and that is done by creating masks. So we've got a secondary color correction on this. We've got a primary grade. As we move down, let me show how to actually, before we move on to the other secondary color correction, I'm going to show how to copy and paste filters or grades from one clip to the next. And the way we do that, so let's go from this shot here to another shot that's very similar. So this shot is very similar to, let's actually do a 2-up. I'm going to grab my number 2 here by the arrow, move it down, and kind of look at these two shots here. So I actually want to take the grade from this and apply to this because they're basically the same shot, the same lighting, the same color, the same brightness level. So I will basically want to copy that. Easy, quick way of doing that is, let me get rid of my number 2 here, drag it up till it's an X, and drop, is by just holding your mouse. I've got this clip selected. I'm going to hold my mouse over this clip here. I know that's the grade that I want, and I'm just going to hit the letter C. Boom. And it just copies that full grade, that primary color from this to this. Now we did the secondary on the face to take out some of the skin tone. The way we copy that is we're going to have to pull down another grading layer over this clip right there. Select this layer instead. Move over this layer, and same thing, copy. And there we go, and you see the skin tone leave the face there. Watch this, I'm going to undo, skin tone's back, redo, and it's copied again. And I'm noticing we probably pulled out a little too much color out of that, but you get the idea. So that is one quick, easy way of copying grades from one clip to the next. Another way of copying grades from one clip to the next, this just really depends on what you're doing. I really like the copy feature, but if you know you've got a clip so many clips down before your clip or so many clips afterwards, there's another shortcut for that. Actually, first of all, I'm going to reset this clip completely, my secondary on there. I'm just going to, let's get rid of the grading layer, put another grading layer on top. There, so now there's nothing on this grade right here, or there is on the bottom. Let's reset that one as well. Reset our primary. So this is completely reset. Both of these are. No grading is taking place on that. Another way of doing this is if you're borrowing grades from clips previous or after, what you can do is you can hold down your Option or Alt key, and then on your numpad hit negative or plus while you're holding down Option. That will say I'm going to borrow a grade from negative before or positive afterwards, and you can do it up to 9 grades previous or 9 grades afterwards. So I got this clip selected. I can do Option, negative, and now I let go of everything and hit the number 2 on my numpad, and it borrows it from 1, 2 grades down. And then I'm going to select the top grade, and I'm going to do Option, negative, but you'll notice there's no grade right here. This is the next clip down on this layer. So this is an Option, negative, 1, and it borrowed that grade from 1 grade down. It's not 1, 2, it is right over here is the next grade down, even though there's a gap right there. So just keep that in mind. So same as forward. Let's go to this clip and reset and say we're going to reset this one, going to reset that one, and now we're going to select the bottom one and we're going to do Option. We're going to borrow it from this grade down here now. So Option plus and then 2. There we go. Select the top grade, Option plus, and it is 1 grade down because there's not a clip in between, 1, and I borrowed that grade from 1 clip down there. So there you go. That's another way of copying grades there. You can also save grades as well, and you can do that down here. Let's click down here. Okay, there's also another way of saving your grades if you want to import them into or use them in other projects besides the project that you're working on here. What you can do is select a clip that you want to save the look to. You go down to your look tab. You go down to your look tab, and you're going to click this little save right here. Whatever clip we've got selected is going to save that grade into your settings and look area. If that's not showing, you just hit this little collapse and restore, and it brings up looks. You also have like several pre-saved looks in here that SpeedGrade comes packaged with that you can use, but you can rename this. I can name it. You can rename this whatever you want to call it. Happy look. I don't know what we're going to call that, but you can save that for a look, and then you can just move on down the line here and find something else that kind of looks like that. Let's find another clip that looks like that. Right there, and all you have to do is double click on it, and it loads it onto your clip there. And it loaded that look onto my clip right there. There we go. So that's another way you can save it. So those three ways that I showed you: your copy by C shortcut, option negative and plus, and then down up to 9 clips, and then saving into your area down here. You can save, and it actually shows the folder location and shows where that grade came from here in your grading panel there. Anyway, but yeah, you can add as many layers as you want down here. I'm going to show now one more type of secondary color correction, and that is by using vignettes, or what are called power windows, or what are called geographic areas that you're going to correct. So let's do a quick grade on this shot right here. So we've got this shot of this girl here, and it's a little bit of a moving shot. Actually, let's find one on just a regular close-up here. This is a good one to do right here, because what we might want to do is kind of highlight the eyes so everybody looks right toward the guy's eyes here on this shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, do some basic grading on this. Bring up my scopes. Let's do our parade here. And with our parade showing here, we're going to do some basic color balancing. First of all, let's mess with our black levels. Bring up the kind of pedestal there, right about there. And now we're going to bring our highlights down just a teeny bit, because they're a little bit hot on the highlights, so down about 90. And now we're just going to bring up kind of the general exposure of this shot, just expose it a little bit more. There we go. Now we're going to add some contrast to it by bringing some of the lower parts of the shadows down. These ones down even a little bit more on the upper end of the shadows. Go to our midtones and start bringing up the midtones to create a stretched region for contrast. There we go. And let's take a look at before and after, a little bit more contrasty. We can do a secondary color correction on this if we want to on a separate grading clip. I'm going to do it on a separate grading clip right there. And same as before. And I'm actually going to borrow it from one clip down and see how the secondary, see if it gets the same skin tones. So I'm just going to do option negative 1, borrow it from down. And that's a little too desaturated there. So, but on my secondary here, I'm going to bring the saturation just up a teeny bit more and restore some of that skin tone there. There we go. There we go. So there's the before, there's the after. Okay, and then now we're going to do our other secondary color correction. That's going to be adding a vignette. The way we're going to do that, we're going to go over here to this mask section. If it's not open, you just click on this arrow here and it opens it up. I'm going to click mask. I'm going to select a type of mask right here, and this is the most common right here. This is a vignette with a Bezier curve on it. We can just click on that and it will add this, what they call this widget up here. This widget here is what's going to, you're going to select a very specific region for grading. What I want to do here is I want to go down to my main layer, and I'm going to add one more primary layer here. So this primary is added on top, and I actually want this to happen before my grading actually occurs. So I want to darken the outer regions. I want to kind of highlight this region here and not the not the region out here. I want this to be a little darker out here. So I'm going to go back to my mask, add a mask to this, and we're going to now this widget here will control the shape of your mask. It's kind of a cool little thing. If you just grab on these arrows, and this little middle section is to move your mask. This arrow here is to widen the shape of it vertically. This is the horizontal shape here. This here is growing the mask for the entire clip. This is rotation, and these two here are skew. So undo that, and then this outer one right here, that is your feather. This is the inner part, and that's where it starts to feather, and this is where it's completely turned off right there. So what we're going to do is highlight these eyes here. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to make this not as wide right there, so we're kind of highlighting the eyes, and I'm going to feather this off gradually as it gets away from the eyes. I'm going to rotate this a teeny bit to meet the eyes there. And there we go. So now I have to add this mask. I've created the mask. I want to apply it to, and this primary grade, you'll see that it's got this little symbol right here, meaning that I've been messing with a mask on this. It's like a mask layer right there. Right now it's not applied to anything. So what you need to do is you need to tell it if you want it to actually show, apply it, whatever you do on this primary grade, to the inside of the mask or to the outside of the mask. This means it's got a mask created, but right now it's not active, so I'm going to say I want it to the inside of the mask. You click that, it's added that circle that's doing it to the inside. And now watch, and actually I'm going to do the opposite, I'm going to do it to the outside. But now as we brighten this up, notice how it just brightens inside the mask there. So what I'm going to do, undo that, I'm going to do it to the outside instead. I clicked on the outside there. And I'm going to darken the outside because I like the levels here, but I'm just going to darken the outside here. I'm going to grab my gamma and just dip it down so it's a little darker on the outside. And that way the eyes are highlighted. Kind of see it out here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is soften my mask a little bit more. Click on mask over here to bring it back up. I'm going to move it over. Actually, we're going to bring this down a little bit so it just kind of gets the eyes right about there, and do more of a gradual feather so you can't really see the mask all that much. So let's turn this on and off. So now you see we've highlighted his eyes. Turn it off. See the difference? And on. And when it's playing, you hardly notice it. You'll see vignettes all over the place once you know this. They're always doing vignettes to highlight certain portions of the regions of the screen. But that's a cool little way of highlighting, changing the color in one area and not the other. Here might be another instance where you do that. Anyway, so right down here is another example where we might want to highlight something in the newspaper. When he looks in the newspaper and sees that this person's wanted for murder, we might want to highlight this region right here. Very easy. First of all, let's do our primary grade. We might want to adjust the darks so they're down around 5 IRE. We're going to do, our highlights don't really need to be brought down, but we're going to increase the exposure of this. It's kind of underexposed. So I'm going to add a primary layer before that grade happens. And you want it to happen before you have to put it on the bottom. I want it to happen before this overall grade takes place. And we're going to darken the outer regions of this and kind of highlight this wanted for murder. So I'm going to create a mask. I've got this bottom layer, and you can actually rename these if you wish. And just double click in there, and we can call this highlight mask. Like that. Now it's no longer called primary, but it is a primary. It's still a primary grading layer. But now we're going to, even though this is kind of secondary color correction, it's still called a primary layer. We're going to create a mask. Going to move this over the wanted for murder. Going to make it a little bit bigger. Make our feather off more gradually. If you hold down Shift once again, it'll do it faster. I'm going to resize that and rotate it a little bit right about there, so it's really highlighting that. And let's make that feather a little bit even more gradual. Now we're going to apply that to the outside, and we're going to darken the outside. So now I'm going to bring down the midtones for the outside, and there we go. And we've highlighted the inside of this paper. Let's look at before. That's the original, and after. And now our attention is drawn right to wanted for murder. Same here, we could highlight right there. Do another mask. So I'm just going to brighten up this, add some contrast to it. Anyway, and then after you get that done, you can do the same thing, add a mask to the region out here and draw the attention there. So anyway, so that is the process right there. I'm going to go over here. So the process, once again, to kind of refresh, primary color correction, you're going to go through correct levels, adjust color, and try to match the shots. That's kind of your purposes of grading, is getting the color, is to meet legal requirements, and then get them matched as well. And also color balancing, we should say as well, balancing each shot, trying to get them to look normal. Secondary color correction, you're going to select specific color vectors, skin tone, sky, blue sky, red books, whatever, red lips, whatever you want to get, and you're going to either suppress those or make them pop, make them come out. Vignettes as a part of second color correction as well, doing power windows where you select a window, an area that's going to correct, that you're going to correct specifically geographically, and adjusting those. So once you're done with this, Let me show one kind of fine-tuning thing here that you can do. Once you've gone through and you've graded all of these files here, the last step that we should add here is going to be looks. Adding a look to your movie. I know we've kind of done some looks here, but you might want to add something just kind of, you might want to cool the entire movie off or the entire scene off, or you might want to warm it up a little bit, or you might want to make it more contrasty. You might want to give it kind of a really kind of cool cinematic look to it. So after everything's been corrected, what you can do, as long as you've watched your levels and you've gotten everything good here, you can add a grading layer over the entire project here. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a grading layer for the entire project here. We're going to grab our grade, we're going to put it up on a layer up above here, Lego, and we're going to hit our all here and make so we can see the entire timeline. We're going to grab this grading layer, we're going to drag it over the entire project. Like that. And you do it till that little line blinks down below. And you're going to get this over your entire project right there. There we go. So we've got a grading layer over our entire project. I'm going to zoom up to the beginning here, make sure that it's lined up to the frame. It is. I'm going to go to the end, hit end. That's gone a little bit beyond there. So I'm going to grab that and drag it back right there. Put our out point. Okay. I'm going to show all. Okay. Now we've got this layer over our entire project here. So whatever we put on this is going to affect the entire project. Let's change a few items here. Reduce that one. Anyway, so this layer will affect everything below. So I'm going to get it on one file here, and I'm going to start looking at some of these looks down in our film stock panel here. Now you can move over, hover over these, you can see different looks that will be applied as you move it over. These come over pretty extreme, but if you find a look that you like, you can apply it and then back it off a little bit. Like there's Kodak film, there's black and white Kodak Fuji. There's also some SpeedGrade Cine looks in here as well. Just move your mouse over till you find something you like. Say, I like that blue ice look right there. You select it, and it just clicks right onto it and adds it to your file. Now you notice that our highlights are pretty hot here. Things are kind of extreme. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this grading layer, and I'm going to back off this. This is actually the LUT right here that's applied to it. It's a lookup table. That's the look right there. It's not the primary layer. It's just this LUT that it's added right here to this clip up here. So I'm actually going to delete the primary layer here because we don't need it. It's just this LUT that's affecting it, that lookup table. Now I'm going to grab the opacity of this, and I'm going to scale it down until I get it exactly where I like it. And I'm going to give this probably about like 64%. That's still kind of extreme, but I like that look. So let's turn that grading layer off and see the look that it's given. It's not only given it to that clip, it is given that look to the entire movie. I haven't graded this clip yet, so we still have the skin tone issue here. But as you move through your movie, you're going to see it's a little too hot on that. But but it will apply that look to everything, to our entire project. These files are kind of mismatched because I haven't done the grading for everything, but this will apply that look for the entire project. After you've done your grading, got all the levels matched, got all the colors matched, and you apply that look layer, then you'll have kind of this cool looking cinema look. See, this is still looking too extreme to me, so I'm gonna tone it down just a little bit. Select that layer. It's looking a little too extreme, so I'm just going to back it off. I'm going to back it off even a little bit more. Take it down to maybe 40% and see what we get. Okay, that's looking better. Now you can see it with and without, and kind of see the look that you get afterwards. You get kind of this a little bit more cinematic look depending on what filters you select there. So, okay, I'm going to save my project. Okay, two last things for finishing. So we're going to go back to our final process here. And actually, I'm going to add one portion here. We got grading our project because exporting our movie is the last part. We're going to add one more little step here in between that's going to be pan and scan. Pan and scan is basically adjusting all the clips, conforming all the clips to your final aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is quick description on aspect ratio. Quick description on aspect ratio here. Basically, aspect ratio is going to be, that's not a very straight line, Basically, aspect ratio is going to be for your image here. We've got, that's kind of a crappy movie screen there, but for however many pixels you got across, you have so many pixels down. Something like this is would equal about what's considered 1.85 simplified fraction. 1.85 pixels across for every 1 pixel down is kind of a wide aspect ratio. 16 by 9. Actually, the shape of this paper here is 16 by 9. This is 1920 by 1080 resolution here, the size of my paper. That is going to be 16 by 9, or if you simplify it, 16 to 9, simplify it to 1, it would be 1.77 to 1, which would actually be about like that compared to the 1.85 to 1. So 1.85 to 1, 235 is even 235 to 1 is like kind of the cinema widescreen for those huge movie screens. You go and see Batman on and all those kind of big epic movies, you see a much wider screen. Then so you have like 235 to 1, 1.85 to 1, 1.77 to 1, or 16 by 9, which is standard HD, and most television monitors come in 16 by 9. So if you're watching a movie on your HD television screen that's 16 by 9 television screen, and you rent a movie that was shot in 1.85 or 1.89 to 1, then you're going to have basically letterboxes on the top and bottom of the screen. So it fits that in there, and this will be black up here, and this will be black down there to fit into the screen of 16 by 9 because it's a wider aspect ratio. So you've got to decide in SpeedGrade what you want your final aspect ratio to be. If this movie was shot all in 16 by 9, it'd be easy. You could just leave it in 16 by 9. But we have 1.85 to 1 cinema aspect ratio from the red camera. And as we move down to that shot of the eyes right there, this shot of the eyes here, and I'm kind of noticing this is way too bright now, but this shot of the eyes here, I'm going to turn that down. So this shot here was actually a 16 by 9 shot on DSLR, a pickup shot, because they couldn't get the red camera for that day. So they included a 16 by 9 in this 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. And you can actually see it change there if you watch really close here as you cut from shot to shot. A little wider, not as wide. So when you export this, you want it to be the same aspect ratio. So if it wasn't all shot in the same aspect ratio, you're going to have to do this. And actually, yeah. So I'm going to grab this arrow right here. We'll grab what's called a pan and scan line and drop it on top of everything. And you've got this widget up here to help move the image. So this is going to keyframe our project. And this is a pain in the butt, but this is what you have to do as well. You have to tell it every shot where it needs to be, how it has to be framed. Because when we cut this off, it's going to cut some off on the top and some off on the bottom to fit into that aspect ratio. And you're going to have to grab this widget and move it up or down and reposition the image and decide, do you want it to crop on the top or on the bottom? Because sometimes as you crop, it might cut off a portion of the image that you need to see. So what we're going to do is go down under our pan and scan here. We're going to pull down our presets and tell it what final aspect ratio we want this to be in. And I want this to actually show in, it's going to be easiest if we do this in 1.85 to 1 right there. So I notice it's zoomed up a little bit there. And this is fine. You're not going to need to pan and scan it. That's actually fine. But as we move through the shot there, it actually moved that frame up a little bit, and it's going to fit everything into the 1.85 to 1. So this is actually pretty simple because most of these shots are in 1.85, but this one single shot right there is not. So what we're going to do is we're going to decide where this is going to be framed by keyframing it. This is a little confusing, but we got to keyframe it on and off here. So I'm going to zoom up to this shot here. And it already added a keyframe where my playhead was. I can just grab that keyframe and drag it to the beginning of the shot right there. And I wouldn't have to keyframe it if I didn't want anything to, oops, my grading layer needs to move over a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move my keyframe into place there right at the beginning frame of this shot. Then we're going to go to the end of the shot and add another keyframe. So it'll go back to where it was before. We have to do one at the beginning and one at the end, and then tell it where we want this shot to be at the beginning of the keyframe. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the keyframe and say, I might want to have these eyes moved up a little bit, but you notice there it's filling in the blank because there's no more shot left. So I'm going to move this down right there. And now I got the eyes pushed up a little bit, so it's cutting off more at the top. See? It's cutting off more at the top than it is at the bottom. I'm going to move it up till right about there. Reframe it. Now as we play through it, it'll hit the second keyframe and it will go back to normal. And this one will not have to be adjusted at all because it's already in 1.85 to 1. But we put a beginning keyframe and an ending keyframe so it doesn't keep that pan down or that tilt down for the rest of the entire project. It has an ending keyframe before I start adjusting this one. And you have to do that for every shot that needs to be adjusted. You add a beginning keyframe and an ending keyframe and adjust it accordingly. So you'll notice here if I move over into the shot, if you didn't have that keyframe, the rest of the project would look like this. You know, so it just barely moved up right there. You can see the little gray line there. It actually shifted this up until it hits that keyframe, then it will move back down. And boom, it just moved back down. So I'm going to undo that, put that back where it belongs. And that you will have to do for every individual shot. So I only needed the pan and scan for one shot there. It has it over the entire project. And you go through and do your keyframes and add your keyframes and take them away and move them, toggle them. So your framing is exactly where you need it. And everything now is in 1.85 to 1. And this shot is no longer 16 by 9. We had to zoom up a little bit on it to get it into that aspect ratio. So now we're going to go to the last portion here. Once you've done all your grading, it is getting your project out. You can go to the render tab here. The render tab is going to export your final movie out. What you're going to do, first of all, is choose a location. You go down here and click on the little arrow here and pull down. We've got our desktop, which includes hard drives and the actual desktop. I'm going to hit my try again project. Actually, let me go to my Finder. I'm going to go into my kill project, and I'm going to right click in here and say color cuts or something like that, so we know that this is where we're going to stick all of our projects. And this is just going to export out video. You can export out audio too, but you're just going to give the visuals back. It's just color correction to your post-production editor, and they're going to sync it back with the audio. Okay, so we're going to go to try. We go to our try again drive. We're going to click on this and go to kill project. Going to go to color cuts. I want to put right in that color cut folder, and now we're going to go to file name, and I'm going to call this test grade for kill project, whatever you want to call it. Of course, I didn't grade this whole thing, but that's how you do it there. Format options. I've got some presets that I've created here. I've got a DNX test project here. If you want to do DNX to Avid codecs or ProRes, I'm going to try ProRes 444. If you're on a Mac, you can do ProRes. If you're not, if you want to maintain the quality, you got to export to DPX, and there's some complications that come with that. You got to know how to work the DPX. It's kind of a pain. Otherwise, you can actually choose QuickTime videos as well. You can go to Other and do QuickTime videos or AVIs or several different types of codecs. For QuickTime video, you got QuickTime, you got native MOV. If you have Kona codecs installed, you can use that. You can do frame sequences, a whole bunch of different items in here. QuickTime is pretty standard. You can just go to like an H.264 if you're just viewing it, if somebody's just taking a look at it. Do ProRes, HQ, H.264. If you do H.264, frame rate's going to stay the same. Video quality, we can do high video quality. You can do target data rates, make the quality higher if you wish. You can go, you can actually tell it to do higher data rates or just an automatic data rate. You can put audio to it as well. It'll take the audio track off here and throw it on there. You can compress it to any one of these codecs that it has installed. And then you can add a name for that preset. I'm going to call this H.264 test preview or something like that. Okay, and you click out of that to save it, and now you hit save, and it saves that as a preset. That's going to be my preset right there. Now framing here as well. If you get a wider aspect ratio, I'm just doing the full image so there'll be no proxy. You don't need to do any sort of letterboxing or cropping. You know, if you're going from 2.35 to a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, you're going to have to add letterboxes. you're going to have to decide to cut off the edges or show the full image inside of a letterbox here. You're going to have to kind of do a pan and scan or clip. And since I'm doing full proxy here, same as proxy, I'm not going to have to select any of these here. It's just going to do a full 2.35 to 1. It's going to be 4K footage here. You can do offline quality, which will do a faster render, or online quality, which does a full quality render if it's just for viewing purposes. I'm just going to do H.264 and we're actually going to go, we're going to pull this down. We're going to do 1920 by 1080, 1080p footage, and I don't want the edges cropped, so I'm just going to make it fit in. Okay, and we're going to make it fit in. So right now, these red squares are the ones that it's not doing. It's going to do this one right here, and I actually want it to do this one right here, where it fits the entire image. It doesn't cut off the edges. It'll format that. It'll squeeze it down and letterbox it for me in a 1920 by 1080 window, a wider aspect ratio within a 16 by 9. So now I've got the name saved. I'm just going to hit render, and it'll show the time that it's going to render. And then once that's exported out, you can view it with the audio file on it. You can and if they like it, if they want changes, they'll give you notes. You go back and change. And once it's all set, you can ask them what they want their master in. If they want it in ProRes, if they want it in DPX, if they want it in DNX, if they want it in H.264, you can come in and export a final full quality file out, and your movie will be done. So that's kind of a quick full-on tutorial for getting your project into SpeedGrade. By the way, one other last little note here. I didn't go through a lot of these tabs here. If you're messing with red footage, this is one of the advantages. So just kind of a little side note here. If you're using red footage and you don't want and you're not using the direct to SpeedGrade, this is some of the things that are grayed out here are timeline options and clip options. You can actually access the red's raw footage settings by going under clip. You can do it for the entire timeline if you wish, or just a clip by clip basis. And under clip, you're going to go under format options. And under format, for this clip right here, we're going to pull this down and say we are working with red footage. And here you're going to have access to all the raw data, most of the raw data that you had on the red camera. You can actually tell it to start off with different red gamma settings. What you have to do is tell it to override the timeline defaults. And then you tell it here, use the settings either stored in each clip or use the settings that you're telling to use below. And then you're going to dial these in. I'm not sure why it came in at 5600, but we're going to tell it this. This is actually shot under tungsten lights, 3200 color temperature. There we go. It's looking a little bit normal. And you'll notice some of the other raw settings here. Where is the ISO? ISO right there. That's a low ISO. I'm going to turn it up. We're shooting inside native 800 ISO. There we go. And it looks pretty much like it looked before, because that's what we shot at was 3200 native ISO. But you can tell it to read off of different red gamma curves. You can tell it to show red log film, which gives more of a flat look, and it gives you more correction. It gives you more latitude to correct the curve on your project. It gives a very flat look, so you can then. This is basically raw right here. You can just really start from the beginning and really get the look that you're going for if you know what you're doing here. Now you can start really adjusting your dark levels. You can start and you can get the same thing going on here. Actually, let's add a curve and show you just a quick version here. RGB curves, and we're going to actually just do a curve on a global scale here. Instead of in the red channel, green channel, or blue channel, we're going to just add a curve here, and then we get a nice contrasty look. But we're creating the contrast ourselves as opposed to the camera starting off with a certain level of contrast. There's our before, very flat. There's our after, very corrected. Looks pretty nice. So that's just kind of a little side note with one reason why you would want to not use the direct to SpeedGrade function and do this like the full professional route. So you have access to the raw footage, you have access to the timeline settings, you have access to clip settings, and you can access the raw data as a result. So if you have any questions, that concludes the tutorial. This is kind of a general overview. So that is the main reason you would want to do kind of this full route as opposed to this. What the direct to SpeedGrade function does is it opens up a Premiere project, and actually SpeedGrade will recognize more file formats that way, because any format that Premiere recognizes, it'll just send it over to SpeedGrade, and it's actually running Premiere in the background as an engine to do the color grading. But this gives you full functionality, gives you full access to the red clips, and these will be grayed out. These two files will be grayed out. Pan and scan. You won't be able to add grading layers with the direct-to-speed grade. You have to do adjustment layers in Premiere and send them over, which can be kind of a pain. So this gives you full access to the full grading suite and corrections. So. Okay, if you have any questions, please email me, let me know, or message me, let me know, and I'll try to get back with you. So.